briefly, before we get into the songs and what they mean and what I wanted to get out of the experience, I'll give you a brief overview of EP1, and that is I'd just come home from London, and my head was filled with music, and I just started working on Glass Ocean over there, mostly in a log cabin actually in Yorkshire in the UK, and I was very over distorted guitars, and I really wanted to make clean sound, darker and hard hitting, and heavy is probably the wrong word, but with more punch, and I wanted to put that sound into a rock format. I was also really keen to be home to write with my best mate Nick, who's been pretty much my main writing partner since the end of high school, and the most important thing was I had a lot of stuff I needed to get off my chest and get out of my head, and the healthiest way to do that was definitely through music. So let's dive in.
It is not I who speaks, it is something from nothing. For love it would seem is something becoming.
Eternity is about the reflection of nothing. It's about the void, a place that everyone's familiar with, a place that when everything is silenced it's just there, and we run away from that. I believe in life we try fill our lives with stuff and try to put definitions on things and cap off a journey and a story, and so that we can maybe say, oh well, that's that. But it's never like that really. In the end, it's always, all those classic it's about the journey, not the end, and all that sort of shit, and it's scary because it's reflected in death, and reflected in dark times in our lives, and I wanted to put a positive spin on that, in the same way that the ancient traditions have put a positive spin, in which they actually try to cultivate that relationship with the void, that nothingness, because oddly enough it seems that is the precondition for something out of nothing, and I can't help but think of art and music and everything, and science and literature and all the good and the bad from that, and back into the void we'll go. The Mystery was a really fun song to write, mainly because I wanted to recreate the same warm feeling that Michael Jackson used to put into some of his big hits. Particularly the song Black and White was a big starting point for me in terms of inspiration. It just gave you so much hope no matter what was what. And I have to thank Paul Suarez from Bass to Band Converter for the groove in the verses, which was awesome and really sort of started to kick that song into gear. And that song is really about the everyday. All we have is the everyday. We break down our whole lives really into the everyday. What we do in a day, the rituals that we do in a day are so important. And I felt personally that I was going to war all the time, with my day, and the way that I looked at it was that I was doing it for love, and when I was doing it right, and that's what the song's about. It's about, each day I struggle to find a peace of mind, but in the end if I do it for love and we do it for love, I think we'll be alright. Alchemy is about, well, when I think of alchemy, I think of two physical representations. One is this one, the old thinking man, the thinking philosopher, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, if you will. And I also think of this. Like that, I'm sure you've seen people like that on a night out where they're like, their hands are in their face and they're almost in a fetal position, and it's all the whole why me thing. And, you know, I think of alchemists and alchemy, you know, more like that's what they are doing, and then what I was doing was that. The song is about the transcendent nature of human beings. And personally, for me, it was about that I couldn't transcend and what I couldn't transcend at the time, and that comes from the imagery of the thorns looking through surfaces, binding thoughts and objects, and it was sort of about my dualistic way of looking at, you know, almost like an alchemical process where, you know, I'm looking at subject and object, and I wasn't really thinking about the quality of what I was doing. I was more obsessed with, you know, maybe what some of the alchemists back in the day were more obsessed with in an unhealthy way. You know, there was obviously the search for the philosopher's stone, and the transmutation of those materials, you know, and then also the transmutation of your soul. But I'm sure everyone in that era wasn't always doing it for the right reasons, and that's kind of how I looked at it as myself, as this sort of desperate alchemist whose work wasn't really that holy, and there was like an undercurrent of something unsettling there, and that's what that song was about. Light of the Moon is actually inspired by a girl I was very into at the time. She sort of brought the lyrics out of me via the way that she sort of investigated the world with what seemed like no filter of bullshit. She really wanted to know more, and she was so curious about the world around her and the cosmos and what made everything go round, and I just loved that, and it inspired love, and really the song in a greater sense is about how that is inside everybody, to some degree, no matter what and no matter who, I believe. And there's a purity in that and a perfection in already what we are, and as fallible and as vulnerable and as fucked up as we may seem at times. Nature of Mind was inspired by a mantra that came to me in a really dark time that brought me back to life. Not so much physically, literally, but maybe. It's about embracing the void and a boundless sky. It was about me loving something that was other than reality, and I needed to open up and let go of whatever that was. And so the lyrics are to go inside, to die, begin, and it was a death that I needed to have in myself, in my internal world, to create a better world inside, so that I could actually do some good and get through what I was going through at the time. Winterhold is a song about depression. It's about, personally, it's about a friend of mine who's no longer with us. And I write a lot of songs for her, and this was the first one, the first one that was publicly released that I've written about her. And I wanted to understand the strength, not the weakness, in her decisions. And that's why I sort of made the comparison to winter, holding on to you, where the cold wakes you up, and breathing the cold in makes things clearer. And when you wake up on a winter morning, I feel like I love winter more than any other month, because I feel like your vision is sharper, and the energy is sharper, and the cold can bring some life to you. And in a way, it's about reflecting, having a real good look, having a go at yourself, basically, and embracing the aspects, those aspects, and breathing them in to alleviate suffering, and to hold a mirror up to yourself. Adelante is about, it's actually a combination of a fictional place in Tolkien's Middle-earth universe, and a place that kind of created in my head. And for those Tolkien nerds, it's on the island of Numenor. Tolkien writes about this place called Almeida. It's like a fishing village. And he also talks about sort of this forest surrounding it. And when the island of Numenor is sunk, which is in the Tolkien lore is the island of where man was created and thrived, and then original sin over the ages sort of spread across and infected the land, very similar to the story of the Bible and the story of Atlantis, when they try to seek immortality and sail to the undying lands and all this sort of stuff, and Sauron's there and he's fucking up the whole place. And anyway, long story short, the island sinks, the gods sink the island, the gift that they had given men, and kind of like Eden. And I used to imagine myself on this island as it was sinking, and I used to imagine like walking through a forest on land, and this giant landmass is sinking into the ocean, and this forest goes from being on land to suddenly being underwater. And I used to imagine walking out and then swimming out to a certain spot, and then going on my back, and then sinking down into the water, and sinking down into this underwater forest that used to be on land. And that was the place that I used to go in my head to write this music, and specifically write this EP. And it was my happy place. It was where I used to imagine the sounds and imagine, most of this record, this first EP. And that's really what that song's about. It's kind of about original sin, but it's also about creation.
Light, the once unknown, discovered us, uncovered who we were. She resides in a...
Overall, really happy with that record. Looking back on it, if I could change anything, I definitely wouldn't master my own record. That was stupid. Make sure you outsource stuff. Stuff that you're not good at, stuff that is only going to take up more time and frustrate you. And there's plenty of people out there that can help you out. So if you're going to try to do everything yourself at home, write, produce, mix, master, all that sort of stuff, make sure that you outsource parts of that to people who are really dedicated to those particular areas, and the whole thing will sound a shitload better. And I think you're really going to hear that on this album, because it was a collaborative effort, and it sounds so much better than the first records. So yeah, boys,